we've been lucky to do a lot of work with Shelby North America. So we've launched a bunch of vehicles for them, including their most recent Shelby Raptor R, which is insane. Like, we took it out in the desert and man, this thing flies. It's so crazy that this is a vehicle that you can purchase with a warranty. Honestly, I like to shoot everything. I like to shoot street cars. I like to shoot the $500 builds, the $1 million cars, historic race cars. I'll shoot anything and everything related to car culture, and domestic vehicles, imported, Japanese, European, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll shoot it. I've seen it time and time again. People that have come up the ranks after I started, just due to their work ethic and just due to their pure skill. If you're truly talented and your work is outstanding, it will stand out no matter what. It doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
But of course, that also means that you have to just put in that extra time and that extra effort to travel to go to where the car stuff is happening, because the car stuff doesn't come to you. You have to go to it. Hey, I'm Larry Chen. This is Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
What an absolute pleasure to have one of the world's most well-known, iconic, legendary photographers on the program. It's a personal thrill, and great to have you on, Larry. Welcome in.
Glad to be here. Stoked on it.
Excellent. You've been, it's funny, call up headlines about Larry Chen, and you've been lurking, capturing all kinds of interesting things of late. I want to talk about that. I want to start off talking about that because one of the latest headlines was that you gave a little bit of a sneak peek, a review of the most insane Ford Raptor that anybody could buy, and then there was another famous Lamborghini that you had snapped recently. You've been capturing some interesting stuff of late. Tell me about that.
Yeah. One of the things that we love to do is we love to work with manufacturers. So we've been lucky to do a lot of work with Shelby North America. So we've launched a bunch of vehicles for them, including their most recent Shelby Raptor R, which is insane. Like, we took it out in the desert and man, this thing flies. It's so crazy that this is a vehicle that you can purchase with a warranty. But besides that, we had a chance to launch their Super Snake, which is also so incredible and just really Mustang elevated in every single way. But honestly, I like to shoot everything. I like to shoot street cars. I like to shoot the $500 builds, the $1 million cars, historic race cars. I'll shoot anything and everything related to car culture, and domestic vehicles, imported, Japanese, European, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll shoot it.
You get excited about everything, don't you? I mean, as long as you're behind the lens and something that's in your viewfinder is appealing, artistic, fascinating, roaring like the Raptor Baja R, you get stoked by all that, don't you?
Yeah. One of the things I always say is that if there's somebody or a group of individuals or a whole community that's passionate about this type of car culture, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it be lowriders, drift cars, drag cars, gassers, off-road vehicles, trophy trucks. It doesn't matter. Time attack, wheel to wheel. I have to look at this culture that they love so much through their eyes, but through my lens. And I just love telling stories. Part of what I'm doing now is I'm playing my part to promote the culture that we love, promote car culture. And honestly, it really stems from the fact that unfortunately magazines aren't really a thing anymore.
Yeah.
I grew up on car magazines, reading car magazines, looking at pictures. That's how I was able to know what was going on in the car world. And even to the point where I was getting imported magazines from Japan to see what they were doing in Japan. But unfortunately, that's not a thing anymore. And I also love the fact that the magazines didn't only feature the big stories and the breaking news and the big facets of the car world, but they focused on the little guys and girls and the small garages and the small home built projects, this, that, and the other. They highlighted so many things that we think is interesting. And so what I'm doing now is I'm just playing my part to fill that gap.
You're right how much it's changed. You go back to those first days in Santa Monica, right? You were growing up in Santa Monica, and you and your buddies, if I recall correctly, you'd go to the LA Auto Show, and you'd also hang out on Pacific Coast Highway, looking at cars, luxury cars, in the wild, car spotting, as it's known. Um, was it always in you? It must have been.
It's always been in me. It is kind of natural for anyone in my generation who grew up in Southern California to just have a passion for cars. Like we grew up in that era of the best drivers' cars. And we also grew up in the era where you couldn't consume the content fast enough. The content that came out was immediately consumed related to cars and culture. Uh, I mean, I feel like I watched every single episode of Top Gear
Yeah.
as it came out. I, just searched out, downloaded whatever videos I could online, got DVDs from Best Motoring Option, the Japanese car culture, just consuming as much of it. And we ran out. There was just not enough to go around. And on top of that, because there wasn't really social media, there wasn't the internet as it is now, it was really hard for us to gather in groups and meet like-minded people unless it was like certain set events that has been going on for a long time. Like I remember at one point it was a big deal even to just get 10 cars together of the same make and model or even just the same make. But now obviously you can't go, especially in Los Angeles and the big cities in the US and all across the world, you can't hit up every single car event in that city. It's impossible. There's too many. Like in Los Angeles, maybe in one weekend, there's 10 events, and you physically can't go to all of them.
You had the passion, you knew that you wanted to do it, and you spent your entire life savings on a camera in order to do this in a more in a more career focused way. Do I have that correct?
It was a very meager life savings. It was a little over $1,000. I remember the camera itself. What I think it was on sale for $999, and then of course
Canon
I had to,
Rebel.
yes, I had to buy the accessories. Right, I had to buy the memory cards, the bag, the this, that, and the other little knickknacks. And at the end of the day, it ended up being all the money that I saved. Back then when I was that was like 20, when I was 20, um, it was a lot of money for me, right? So me spending all that money on this item that I was using just to play around with, just to take pictures of cars and friends and family, but mostly I was aiming to take better pictures of cars. It, at the time, it seemed kind of wasteful, pretty wasteful, but obviously it worked out for the better.
You started as a freelancer, right? For Speed Hunters blog.
Yeah, I worked up to that point. Right, so I shot for many, many years, proving myself. And at a certain time, that whole thing owned by Electronic Arts was going on. They just wanted to essentially buy their credibility in the industry when it came to the Need for Speed franchise, and they wanted to have their own media outlet. and they were supporting a certain amount of photographers all over the world. And they gathered a pretty incredible team of shooters to tell car culture stories all over. And I was fortunate enough to meet the right people, make the right friends, and then join the team around that era, 2010 and on.
Could you ever have imagined that this would be just what you would do on a regular basis, chronicling car culture?
No way. No way. No way. I remember going to my first races very early on, just sitting in the stands, looking through the fence, and also seeing the photographers on the sidelines. And I look at them and I thought to myself, that could not be any further away. Like
Mm.
how is it that they could have that good access and make those good pictures and tell those amazing stories? Like I just couldn't imagine it because it was just so far and I just couldn't fathom that I could do this all these years later. Now I'm just so lucky to be able to shoot honestly the most incredible cars and most incredible builds and break these stories that I'm just so proud of. It's just incredible.
You said, Larry, that you think that it might not have happened for you the way it did if you didn't grow up in Southern California, where hot rodding effectively started and is still the center of car culture.
It
It was a perfect environment for you, wasn't it?
yeah, in my eyes, it was. There's couple places I feel like in the world where you can grow up and you can do this as a living without having to sacrifice so much, right? So as it is now, I'm still traveling every single weekend to go in search for cars and the culture surrounding it. But with that said, while I'm here in Los Angeles, in Southern California, I'm still able to capture so much. I'm still able to shoot so much. Like you wouldn't believe how much of the uh, materials and content the manufacturers shoot are just here in SoCal. Part of it is the weather, part of it is with the landscape, and also just the accessibility, and also the fact that Southern California is so film friendly. It just takes a couple phone calls to get a location, to get permits, to get the police to help you. It's unlike that anywhere else in the world. With that said, I'm not discouraging other people if they grew up in whatever, the Midwest or the South or Florida or the East or Northwest, whatever, in the US or Europe. I've seen it time and time again. People that have come up the ranks after I started just due to their work ethic and just due to their pure skill. If you're truly talented and your work is outstanding, it will stand out no matter what. It doesn't
Mm.
matter where you are.
Yeah.
But of course, that also means that you have to just put in that extra time and that extra effort to travel to go to where the car stuff is happening because the car stuff doesn't come to you. You have to go to it.
When you think about how much you just alluded to this a moment ago, but how much things have changed, automotive photography has changed along with the changes in publishing and especially with social media. Where do you see the industry heading, let's say in the next 5 to 10 years?
I, to be honest, I see more and more content creators like myself creating content that people like myself and people like in the younger generation and also if it I just see so many content creators creating content that I would have loved to watch as a kid, but even now, part of it is because we move so much faster than these big publishing companies or media houses or um, traditional media. I feel like there's still a place for them, but it's difficult for them to change quickly with the times. And, maybe things will shift in the near future. Hopefully they kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel and they join everybody else, or they push to just push this media that is YouTube, that is social media. But more and more, like time and time again, I see so many other creators making incredible content, putting their heart and soul into it, making stuff that I seriously just cannot wait to watch.
Yeah, if anything, the proliferation of other platforms has just created all kinds of different avenues for folks. You go back to the your reference earlier about magazines and waiting for that next car and driver motor trend, road and track to arrive. But yet now, any of those avenues are open at all times, aren't they?
Yeah, I do see the resurgence of one type of media when it's related to cars and car culture. I see the resurgence of really high-end print that's not really a periodical. It's something that is so high-end, it's not even fair to call it a magazine. It's more of like a book, right? And I've seen that before. Like one of the examples, of course, is Triple Zero magazines. I am a very small part owner of that magazine, and I
Mm-hmm.
helped that magazine pretty early on, along with Jeff Zwart. He had the first cover for Triple Zero magazine, and I had the second cover. And since then, him and I have helped it grow to what it is now. And then the opportunity came up for me to purchase just a small stake in it, and I did. And this is exactly something that I really believe in, where it's transcended just like the normal everyday, every week, every month car magazine. Now, what it is it's a quarterly book that's all Porsche. And I saw that pretty early on, for example, with a lot of lowrider culture, where you're not relying so much on advertisements, you're relying on people paying more money for this book that they can keep forever. It's not just something that you just toss. And I really like that. And I find that more car books and more car magazines are coming out that are of that paper quality and that journalism quality. It's pretty cool.
I've got half a dozen. I'm building my own collection. Half a dozen magazines behind me, and
Hmm.
we had the art director of that magazine on this program 3 years ago, Guy Berryman, and that is Road Rat magazine that sits behind me.
Mm.
When you said that, I thought of that type of magazine that is almost a beautiful coffee table book that sits there, and when it arrives, 4 times a year, you get excited about that because you know the artwork is quality. You know that the written word is quality. That's kind of what you're alluding to, isn't it?
Yeah, that goes along the whole film photography resurgence too, right? There's just so many new creators that never grew up in that era of film photography that are getting into this because it's just a visceral feeling. It's analog, it's long and drawn out, but it's so much fun. And that's along with the vinyl record thing too, right?
Yeah.
We're just looking for more um, just nostalgic things that may not be something that we grew up with. I mean, I started with film photography and I still shoot on film just to stay sharp in terms of like being able to apply my skills that I've learned with digital photography to film. But it also slows me down so much. And I just love the sounds. I love the smells. I love the texture and the feeling of film photography, especially when I'm shooting things for myself, not just for work.
I mentioned this to you off air, but my 20-year-old is a photographer, media studies, and he came across an AGFA camera recently, a German made film only 1950s style
Hmm.
camera, and it's funny to have that generation interested in that type of equipment when honestly everybody's carrying a very high powered device in their pocket at all times.
I You want to relate to that? You want to relate that to cars? I mean, the fact that these cars, carbureted cars, old school, and it could even just be from like early fuel injected cars from the 80s and 90s. These young individuals getting into cars, like they think these cars are so cool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like just that whole era, mid 80s to mid 90s, that there's a reason why they're going up in price, exponentially, because these individuals are coming on wealth, they're working hard, and they're able to enjoy these cars.
Yeah. Yeah. You've done, I want to fast forward to what you're doing today.
Mhm.
You're doing a lot of work with Pennzoil, and I know that you have a partnership with them, including an exciting car culture video series that is just in basically in launch mode. Tell me a little bit about that.
Pennzoil is such a legacy company. They're really, really cool. And I absolutely love working with them so much. It's something that just makes sense. It's something that's really not a hard sell. It's they just care about one thing, and they care about retaining and promoting this thing, which is they have this campaign going called "Long May We Drive." It's just everything surrounding just that. It's that feeling that you get when it's just this empty road or this windy road, and it's just you in the car, and it's the sounds, the sights, the smells, the feeling that you get. It's a little bit of freedom. It's just so much of all of that. And I absolutely love working with them because they don't give me any direction in terms of what to capture and what to create.
Hmm.
They just want to support creators like myself to keep it going, to keep the conversation going. Um, Growing up, I always thought it was such a cool brand, especially if I could just grab something off camera real quick.
Yeah.
Just give me a second.
A Pennzoil Nismo
Yeah, yeah,
GTR model. I love
exactly.
it.
I literally just had this hanging out in my shop. Um, the story behind this is I, I grew up playing Gran Turismo. I grew up um, playing this car in video games. And also, before I had a driver's license, I played a lot of RC cars. And this is an RC car. And I remember very clearly this was $100 model
Hmm.
back when I was a kid, and I couldn't afford this. But as an adult, especially after doing a lot of work with Pennzoil, found this exact Tamiya model. It's a RC car, 10 scale RC car for $600 on eBay.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
unassembled. So then I was able to find it, and then I assembled it, and now I'm playing with it as an adult. The My excuse is, of course, that I have a son who loves RC cars,
Yep.
and we love playing RC cars together. But let's be honest, really, this is for me. This
Yeah.
being able to relive my childhood, that I wasn't able to afford this. I looked at it, it was like this shiny object, in the store, at the hobby store. And I thought to myself, like, maybe one day I'll be able to get something like that. But yeah, no, I really like working with them. The content series that they created with me was a lot of fun. I literally just brought out my drift car, and they just told me to shred tires until I was tired. And I spent all day just pushing and pushing and pushing and just burning tires, having fun, just big smile on my face, giving rides. That's what I love so much. And yeah, I love working with them.
A little bit back to the beginning for you, right? When you talk about getting involved with drifting cars, I know that that's some of the early stuff that you shot, wasn't it?
Yeah. Growing up, again, in Southern California, drifting was super popular. Part of it is because D1 Grand Prix. from Japan. They brought their entire series over to Irwindale Speedway. Rest in peace. It just got demolished 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago. Uh, that they brought it for the first time around 2002, 2003, and that was just when I was getting into cars. That's when I got my driver's license and I was cruising around with my friends, and it was like this hot new thing, drifting. Oh my god, what is this?
Right.
I had a chance to see it for the first time at Willow Springs back, I would say around 2004, 2005. And it was just so cool. It was mesmerizing, the control that these individuals had behind the wheel to be able to drive them the way they did. It's amazing. And now I'm so lucky after all these years, I'm able to work with those individuals that were driving those cars back then when I was behind the fence, just watching them as a spectator. Uh, for example, like the Drift King, Keiichi Tsuchiya, and Manabu Arito. Um, so many incredible, uh, so many talented drivers that were drifting on the cutting edge of drifting way back when. They're still doing it today, and for me to share a track with them now is such an honor.
Back last fall, we had Formula Drift champion Chelsea DeNofa on the program as well, and he described a lot of it. I know he's incredible in your mind.
Yeah, he's great. I was very fortunate to follow his career very early on when he first started getting into Formula Drift, all the way to him retiring with the ultimate mic drop, winning the championship and
And leaving.
saying, well, actually, no, he did the ultimate mic drop. It was even worse than winning the championship and then leaving. It was saying, I'm leaving no matter what, and then winning the championship.
Right, 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 right.
Yeah, which is the ultimate mic drop. Love Chelsea. And just really, really good driver. Very talented and has great style. I've had the pleasure to photograph him over his career, and every time it's just so much fun. Uh, whether it be me behind the wheel following him in my camera car, or me on the sidelines, or me even riding with him. It's a really good time shooting with Chelsea.
Some might not know, but you might be able to tell during this conversation. You're a major car guy yourself, and that includes your own collection.
Yeah,
A much modded out 1970 Datsun 240Z.
yeah.
Um,
I'm stoked. I got new wheels on my Toyota Mark II just
Excellent.
uh, just a couple weeks ago. The most hot boy wheels ever. But I have an addiction to cars. I love them. I live it. I'm not only
You're not
photographing
shooting
it.
it.
I
Right.
I live it. I'm
Yep.
Last night I was coming back from Sonoma Raceway. This weekend I raced in Spec E30 in my Spec E30, 1984 BMW 325i. I unfortunately had a pretty tough race weekend. We did end up blowing a head gasket, which sucks so much because I missed my last race. Uh, Leading up to it, I was having a pretty good time. I feel like I was making pretty good pace, and we had a couple of good races, and we're still developing the car. But unfortunately, I missed the last race because of the head gasket, which is such a
Mm.
bummer. I have a huge race coming up in 2 weeks at Willow Springs, so we're gonna have to figure out something to rebuild that engine. Which it's just the hits keep coming, and I guess that's part of playing pretend racing driver, right?
Right.
I I'm just a tourist. I like to participate, and the only reason why I'm racing and drifting and getting behind the wheel is because it's for life fulfillment. It's not for anything else. I'm not making money from it. In fact, I'm losing a lot of money from it, which is fine because it's what I like to do. It's what I
Right.
love,
Right.
and wheel to wheel racing and as well as drifting is what I absolutely love.
What's the story behind your BMW M3 project that you did in Europe,
Oh,
affectionately nicknamed Larry's Lemon?
this morning as I was taking a shower, I was thinking Dang, I really have bad luck with BMWs, huh? I I so the story behind Larry's Lemon E36 Euro M3, which has the was a S50 B32 engine, which is something that we didn't get in the US. It makes quite a bit of horsepower, which I feel like was so much for its time. And I kept thinking that when I was driving this thing on the Autobahn. You know, I could cruise at 140, 145 mile an hour for stretches. I feel like for hours at a time in that car. And it just took it. And it was so fun to drive. But honestly, it was such a pile of crap. It was so bad. It was falling apart. We thought had the bright idea to take European delivery of a car, which I've done in Japan. I've been so fortunate enough to make friends where I can purchase a car and enjoy it in that country, in the country that it was meant to be enjoyed in, right? So a good example is Nissan Skyline. It never came out in the US, but I took delivery of one in Japan. I enjoyed it for 2 years with my family, driving all over Japan, and we restored it in Japan, and then now it's here in the US. I wanted to do the same thing in Europe with a car that I've always wanted. Growing up, I had a family friend that was very fortunate to have the E36 M3, a four door, 1998, as his first ever vehicle. And I was just so jealous. And I looked at, not jealous, I was envious. And I really enjoyed the car. I thought it was so cool. And I thought to myself, one day I got to have one of these cars. Fast forward all this time, I'm looking for one. I really like the Dakar yellow. I think it's very Pennzoil-esque, right?
Yep.
I felt like it was just like something that I wanted, and it's such a driver's car, and it's a car like if you know, you know. You know,
Right.
if you know about cars and you look at it and you know it's a Euro M3, you think, "Wow, that's cool. That's a cool car." Um, we took delivery of it in London, and it turned out to be just falling apart. You know, the thing it had a blown engine, which was not disclosed. Um,
Hmm.
so much went into even getting it on the road. And then when I saw it for the first time, I just thought to myself, boy, did I make a financial mistake buying this car. With that said, it still lasted our road trip. I drove from London all the way to Warklaw in Poland, which I don't even know how many countries we went through, six, seven countries. Obviously, all the way through Germany, all around Europe, a little bit of Eastern Europe, France. You know, we drove that thing everywhere, and we put, geez, I don't even know, 7,000 kilometers, probably 7,000 kilometers on it over the course of like a 2 week period, just touring around Europe, going to Porsche, going to BMW, going to all of these places, visiting my buddy JP in Dortmund, and everybody looked at it and they they appreciated the story, and of course they love the name, all of that, you know, Larry's Lemon. But boy, was it a lemon! It did make it
Yeah.
though. I do have to say, I drove it on the Nürburgring. I drove it 6 laps. I would have driven it. We had enough time for 8 laps, but I ran out of gas. I drove it so much. So it was a good car. I'll admit it was a good car. It just wasn't a looker. Luckily now it's at EAG in Cincinnati. That's another business that I'm a small minority owner of. They restore BMWs and they sell BMWs. I think they probably have some of the best BMWs in the world. If you want to see what a 300,000 E39 M5 looks like, you just have to go to EAG
Wow.
and see. They are incredible. But they are restoring it right now to its former glory, which I'm really excited about because it's a car. I'm a lover of cars. I just can't buy a car and sell it because if I buy a car in this time period, for myself, it's because I'm buying it for a reason. It's because I want to keep it. And it's because honestly, I work hard enough where I'm lucky and I'm able to enjoy the cars that I love. And this is one that I really cared about. And this is one I wanted to daily drive and, you know, cruise around in. It's such a good car. But the one I had, everything was falling apart. But, and what's funny is in the comments, when I'm talking about the vehicle, everyone's like, that's part of the course. That car fell apart because at the time BMW was testing these recyclable materials, including the glue that they used that was
Hmm.
like recyclable, and it would just disintegrate in the sun. So
Hmm.
this being a Spanish car in Spain, very dry, a lot of sun. That's why it disintegrated.
Incredible story. In the time that we have left, I want to ask you a few more photography questions. A
Sure.
lot of people get caught up in gear, Larry, but you've shown that eye matters more than equipment. How do you push the limits of whatever gear you're using?
That's a great question. I'm very proud to be a Canon Explorer of Light, official Canon photographer, and I've been partnered with Canon since winter of 2019. But it, it it's something interesting. Like one of the things that I like to preach, even though I am a Canon ambassador and I promote Canon cameras so much, what I like to preach is shoot with what you have, and if what you have is just a cell phone, shoot with that. Or if you could just afford a point and shoot with that. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The gear, there's time for it. There's time for you to save your money, collect the most the most fast lenses and the sharpest lenses and the best bodies. There's time for that. But what's more important is spending your money to go to where the car stuff is, right? If there's a race or if there's an event that you've always wanted to go to, I would say it's better to just save your pennies to go to that event. Um, whether it be Le Mans, Tokyo Auto Salon, SEMA Show, uh, whatever, Pikes Peak, and it could be anything. 12 Hours of Sebring, whatever you can think of, Pebble Beach, anything that is related to cars. If you want to see it in person, Goodwood Festival of Speed, that's a good example. If you had $5,000 and you could get the top of the line Canon R5 Mark II, or you could go to Goodwood Festival Speed and maybe rough it out a little bit, sleep on floors or whatever, eat just kebabs only, and just enjoy the event and see these cars in person. I highly suggest to do that because that's what's more worth it.
Yeah.
Um, with that said, I do have a lot of gear. I what's called gear acquisition syndrome, gas. I have all of the gear, and part of it is because now I have to be on the absolute ragged edge of what's possible with car photography. So I always have to have the unfair advantage when it comes to capturing pictures because there's so many other people out there that are very, very talented that I'm going right up against. Um, I I always try the latest and greatest gear. I always try to be proficient with it, and yeah, that allows me to improve my photos with just um, minor changes. Right, I get to continually improve on car photography without having to continually uh, just put more time and effort in. I can still put a lot of sacrifice, but me having the best lenses, best gear, it makes the photos just that much better. But do you really need it? It's not necessary. It's honestly so much of it is for myself. It's for personal satisfaction and for me to continually improve year after year.
You've traveled the world shooting hundreds of the most legendary cars and events, thousands of cars. What was your personal favorite shoot of all time?
That's
It's impossible to
impossible.
say. It's
Yeah,
impossible to say.
it's very difficult.
Do you have some favorites? I guess if
Yeah,
something comes up and you know you're going to go.
I think it's really hard for me to talk about my favorites without mentioning what we accomplished with Ken Block. Uh, he prided himself in having the ultimate shutdowns and the ultimate access. And when Gymkhana was in town, everybody would it was just open doors, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, yo, you want this freeway? No problem. You want this road or this mountain pass or this bridge or whatever? No problem. These were just dream locations that we could only dream about. Like it could only be done virtually before. But now, or at that time period when he came around, it was like, what's next? What's possible? Well, the impossible is possible. And anytime I worked with him, I really pushed myself, like in every way, physically and mentally. With car photography, it was just the sky's the limit. And because of that, and because of those projects, my photos have been viewed, I probably even over 1 billion times, especially
Wow.
when you add the views together. Because my job on set with Gymkhana, yeah, was to do set photography and show behind the scenes and show what it actually looked like. But my number one goal was to get the thumbnail, the all important thumbnail. And you know how important the thumbnail is
Yeah.
because that's the first thing anybody sees
Right.
when they
Right.
click a video, whether subconsciously they realize it or not. They're looking at my photo. And that was so important. We spent days and days and days and nonstop hours of me working with the team and just picturing using remote cameras or whatever and just thinking concept wise, what would be the one photo that represents this one, two, $3 million production? You know, what's the thing that will compel somebody to click this thing? And that's just something that I really took to heart and I worked really hard on.
Hmm. If you were starting today, what would you do differently? What would you do the same? And
Oh,
maybe related, what's a lesson that you wish you had known when you were just starting off?
oh, that's really tough. It's hard for me to dwell in the past because I feel like, the path that I chose is the path that I chose. It's kind of difficult to say. Honestly, I mean, I do get asked this question every now and again, and it's kind of tough for me because I draw a blank. I feel like I don't want to have any regrets in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like the decisions that I made leading up to this point. Of course, I've made plenty of mistakes, a lot, a lot of mistakes, but I also don't want to think maybe I could have done better. Um, it's tough, I feel like I've sacrificed so much to get to this point, and I feel like I should just stay the course and not really think about the past and really focus on the future because I know so many people that just dwell in the past and maybe it was better times or whatever. Um, I can't do that. I have to just
Maybe
focus
maybe advice for those who wanted shoot car culture.
now. Yeah, that's a good one. Um, the gear thing is a piece of advice that I already
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, right? Uh, I also have to say two big things is try to be positive. Not every car is perfect, and that's okay, right? Yeah, maybe something is welded together pretty janky and it's going to fall apart and it's maybe dangerous a little bit the way it's built or whatever. And maybe it's not even your cup of tea. It's just in your mind ugly. Um, But I feel like maybe look at the positive parts about it, right? This individual, instead of spending money on something else, they spent their money on the car or to have their interpretation of what this car should look like. That and also just be personable, easy to work with, fun to be around. Because the same people that I work with now, day in, day out, from 20 years ago, it's the same people that I'm working with. Or, yeah, same people I'm working with back then are the same people I'm working with now because I've built these relationships over time. And as I've progressed in my career, they also have progressed in their careers, but we still keep wanting to work with each other. Of course, we're working with new people, but having these connections helps so much because we all just want to do cool things and make cool work. Whereas if you keep burning bridges and if you're not fun to be around, you're not going to last very long. You get weeded out pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
He is chronicling car culture every click of a shutter at a time. What an absolute pleasure to have you on the program and hear your vision from behind your lens, Larry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason.